Thank you, thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone. This is our presentation on the paid lunch equity guidance for the 2019-20 school year coming up. And the reason we do the paid lunch equity for the 2019-20 school year in the 18 year is to see how much your full paid lunches may need to increase in their pricing. Let's go ahead and get started. For your 2018-19, for an SFA or School Food Authority, which charge less than the target weighted average price of $3 in the 18-19 school year, are going to be required to adjust or raise your full paid lunch pricing. You may be asking what we mean by your weighted lunch price, and we're kind of going to go into that in more detail as we move forward here. But you're either going to have to raise your full paid lunch prices or contribute non-federal funds to your nonprofit school food service account. Now, this year, as with last year, we're going to offer the exemption to the paid lunch equity requirement if your school district had a positive or zero balance in your nonprofit school food account as of December 31st, 2018. But with that being said, you may still want to complete this PLE tool just so you can keep up with what your full paid pricing should be in your district. And it may help you to have, if you still have to fill one out later on, if you're not exempt, you may save you some time and effort in going back over the paid lunch equity pricing for your school district. And I don't think I introduced myself at the very beginning, so let me kind of back up. I am Dana Parker. I know most of you that are listening out there know that I'm the Director of Training. We also have in the house today some guests with us here that are that answer your phone calls, and so they're listening also to the Paid Lunch Equity webinar and are available to help me answer questions. So if you guys really think of a question, go ahead and type it in. Gary's going to be helping me watch for questions, and we can stop the webinar and at the end and try to answer any of those questions that you have just to keep the webinar moving forward. All right. Some of the documentation that you will need if you're going to apply for one of the exemptions and you're going to send in your request for an exemption would be your revenue expenditure report, and that can be the summary report from your OCAS accounting. It doesn't have to be the 20, 30 page report. It can be the summary. A child nutrition monthly board report would work, or any other report that you have that shows that your school food service account had a zero or a positive balance as of December 31st. And as you see on the screen, you're going to submit that data to that email address, that cnp.data.submissions@sde.ok.gov. Just make sure when you're filling that out and sending that in to us that you put in that subject line your school name, your district county code, and that you're the PLE exemption request. Make sure all of those things are in there and that you send it to the right email address. And it's always a good idea to request a read email so that you make sure we do receive that email, and don't lock a claim or lock your application and agreement later on because we haven't received that. We've talked about if you have a negative balance, though, in your nonprofit school food service account as of December 31st, you are going to be required to complete the PLE tool and send that to us. And that PLE tool is actually going to tell you how much you need to raise your lunch pricing, or if you're going to contribute those non-federal funds. And we're going to go into that in a little more detail. The non-pricing schools that are exempt from the PLE are as if you are a school district that does not charge your full paid students for meals, if you are a Provision 2 or 3 school, or you are a community eligibility school. This is all from the memo, the original memo, SP 39/2011, if you want to read a little more about the exemptions. If you're required and you're charging your paid students for your paid student meals, you need to be charging what is called the weighted average price of the $3 that we talked about earlier. And how USDA figures that weighted lunch price is based on the free reimbursement, which is $3.23. That's not including the 6 cents for the extra that you get paid for the being in compliance for your meal patterns, or the Alaska and the different rates. So the $3.23 minus your 31 cents for what you're paid from USDA for your full paid meals equals the $3. And that's the amount of money that USDA is requiring us to have our full paid lunches to be charged at. So if you're charging less than $3 and you're not subsidizing your school food service account, you're going to be asked to increase your full paid lunch prices. The maximum the USDA asks us to raise our lunch prices is 10 cents. You can always raise your lunch prices more to get to that weighted average, but you're not required to raise your school food service full paid lunches more than that. The paid lunch equity tool also helps you decide on the amount of money to increase it, and it's for like I said earlier, the 2019-20 school year, and that seems really hard to say, 19-20 school year. If you're going to be contributing non-federal funds instead of raising your lunch prices, which is an option that you can do, you can use your money from any paid meal, which is breakfast or lunch, any funds that are provided by organizations for your paid meals. If you have a community that makes contributions to help pay for student meals, that can be considered part of your non-federal funds. Any portion attributable to the paid meal from payments from your, maybe from your general fund, cash received for student meals, and we're going to talk about how to credit that money for these using these non-federal funds. There is a page in the Child Nutrition Manual on page C44, and it looks just like what we have up here on the screen. For this form, you're going to want to get your number of paid meals for all the school year and the total number of meals. You're going to divide that to get your percentage of the student paid meals compared to your total meals. Then you're going to want to take the dollar amount in your expenditures from your previous year in funds 11 through 60, and with the program code 700, and these are going to all be attached to your project reporting code of 000, which is a local reporting code, and any of the functions that you see there on the screen, which is for, like if your general fund is paying for your labor out of their function code 3120 and 3130, and other direct is 3140, 3150, of course, is food. So if your general fund is paying any of these expenses for your child nutrition, they needed to be coded correctly, and then you'll take your non-federal fund source times your percent of your student meals, and that amount equals the amount of money that is available to cover your non-federal funds for your paid student meals. And if that doesn't totally make sense, we understand that, and we can help walk you through that form if you call and speak to one of the girls. And we're going to look at the tool here in just a minute, but what the tool actually does is help you figure out what that average price will be, especially if you're a school district and you have more than one cafeteria and you charge different prices for elementary, junior high, and different things. And it compares those and determines what that needs to be, and then how much of your non-federal funds that you may need to contribute, or you may want to do a combination of each. You may want to raise your full paid lunch pricing a little bit and then contribute some non-federal funds. The form helps track what you need and helps you track from year to year how much you're going to need from the non-federal funds and how much you've used. So that's when we were talking about earlier that you, even if you're exempt, you might want to look at going ahead and keeping up with your paid lunch equity tool each year so you can keep track of the different pricing and the weighted price average and non-federal funds of what you actually have available for you. The required data for the tool. Well, first you're going to need your school year 18-19 unrounded price requirement or your school year 10-11 weighted price average. You're going to need all of your lunch prices for October 2018. We're going to take it back to everything in October. And the number of paid student lunches associated with each paid lunch price in 2018. Remember, if you are a CEP, Provision 2 or 3, or completely non-pricing, you're exempt from completing the tool because you're not going to be charging full paid students for meals. I know some of you are looking at this and saying, oh, that slide may be in error because that's the old e-claims. That's we're using cards now. Yes, we are. But your last year's unrounded price that you're going to need, if you didn't save your tool from last year and you're not sure what it is, we still have that in the e-claim system. You can still get that by making sure you click back to the 2018 and looking down at your average price. So if you see that $256, that was this district's average price. It was their unrounded average price. That's what you're going to take and put into the 2019-20 school year. The 2019-20 paid lunch equity tool. I'll get that all out in a minute. Just a little kind of a side note on this slide. If you have a cafeteria and let's say you're one of the larger school districts and you charge multiple full paid lunch pricing maybe at a single cafeteria and you're wanting to kind of know how to use that, like the slide tells us, you're going to get the average price of all those lines in that cafeteria. So if you're charging your full paid students to go through the pizza line and that full paid price is $3, but they can go over to the hamburger line and it's only $2, the average price from that $3 and $2 is $2.50. So that's what you would use as your full paid average price for those student full paid meals for that cafeteria. That's probably not happening everywhere, but it is a possibility. It's been brought up. So we wanted to make sure if you had that question that we tried to answer it before you started entering information into your tool. Some additional tips on the tool is you need to make sure you have last year's available or go back to the e-claims and get your last year's weighted average. If you had any credits that carried over from last year to this year, you're going to want to make sure you bring those forward. Is the current weighted average price, lunch price, above the requirement? You're going to only have to complete the tabs that are relevant. So like I said a few minutes ago, you can raise your lunch pricing, you can contribute non-federal funds, or do a combination. So if you're just going to raise your full paid lunch pricing, you don't need to do the non-federal fund tab in there. You can leave that out, and it'll make a little more sense. And if you're out there and you've been doing the paid lunch equity tool for the last 10 years, you understand what I'm talking about. The 10-cent cap doesn't mean that everyone, you're not going to just automatically raise every school site 10 cents. It may be a combination effort. You may be wanting to raise one 20 cents and another one 5 cents. Your average price is what needs to be raised, that 10-cent cap. So that'll make a little more sense as we go through. The paid lunch equity tool has 9 tabs at the bottom. As you see, those tabs are still the same as they were last year. Here's kind of a screenshot. Again, the tool this year has the PLE guidance, which is the basic memo that is attached with the tool under cars, and then you have instructions. It's really, really to your best interest to go through and read all the instructions before you start filling out the tool, and it will help you understand where each step of the tool is going to take you. Hang on a minute, we have a question.
They will just go see where it says SFA name.
Oh, good point. Leanne.
Information that will carry over, and then if they don't put their information in the subject line, we can at least what school.
That is true. Leanne brought this to my attention, and thank you, Leanne. On the SFA name, if you see up at the top where it says SFA name and it has kind of a peachy color, all through the tool where you see that peachy color, that is where you can enter information. So you want to go into that right there and put, whatever your school name is, and even your county district code. That really helps the girls in the office keep up with who they've received and who we're still lacking, and get you in the proper credit for the PLE tool. And like I said, the tabs at the bottom, this is an Excel spreadsheet. The instructions, it gives you those same things that we just saw on the slide, that you need your 10-11 weighted average prices needed, your 18-19 weighted price if it's different from your 10-11, the total number of paid lunches in the school year. This is if you're contributing non-federal funds. You see in the other peach tab. This is just a screenshot. So right now we're going to go out and actually go download the tool. So if you were going from scratch and you had to find the PLE tool out on the website, you're going to go to your child nutrition. You're going to come over to the claims application and review system, which is CARS. And the good news about CARS is you do not have to have a username or password to get into the other documents. See over here on the left, you're going to go into other documents. Scroll down to our PLE section. We have a wealth of information. We've also, the memo is there. It's the SP 27-2019 PLE guidance for school year 1920. But here's the tool. I'm going to go ahead and open the tool. And sometimes you have to look because your computer may try to put it in a spot where you have to look for it a little bit. The first thing you need to do is when you open this up, you need to go and do a save as. Make sure you save that on your computer somewhere where you can find it. I'm not going to save it on Gary's computer, however. He probably does not need the paid lunch equity tool. And if you see the tabs down at the bottom, the PLE guidance, the PLE instructions, this is where Leanne was talking about we want to put our name. And I'm going to put my name up here, so I'm Dana Parker, School District. And if we go to the next tab and scroll up, see how my name has scrolled over to the next tab. And it will be that way throughout the tool. The first thing when we were talking about your enter the unrounded requirement in this box below, see how the peach column, this is where you're going to be able to enter. So if you enter that 252 that we were looking at under e-claims, under the school district that I blocked out their names, and let me tab, because sometimes you have to tab and see how it says now the requirement price to the nearest cent. Then you're going to want to put in what your 2010-11 weighted price average was, and let's just guess at something here that it was $2.05, and see how the tool carries information over for you. These links will take you, if you're needing to skip over the tabs, it'll take you to the tab where you want to go. If you just click on the next tab, where I said you needed your October 2018 full paid lunches, this is where you're going to list that information and what the prices were, and the tool is going to tell you how much revenue you should have collected for that. I'm not going to walk through each step of the tool, but that and this optional part 3 is where you can put in the same information and you can play with the pricing adjustment to see how to adjust the different pricing in your different cafeterias to get it to what you need to increase your full paid lunch pricing. The non-federal calculator, it allows you to put in the amount of money once you've figured it on the other form of how much non-federal funds you have available for your use. You can come in here and put, so if you're going to use a combination, the split calculator is the page you would put the combination. The report is very important that you come over and finish this very last page, because our ladies need to know what you're saying you're going to do. Are you going to increase those lunch prices? Are you going to contribute the non-federal funds? Are you going to do a little of both? At or above equity, that means your district is already charging what is required at the $3 or the weighted average. So if you're already there and the tool says you don't need to raise prices, that's what you would check. Or if you were exemption granted.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you for.
Hang on.
If you were at or above equity, you would have to be charging at least the difference between a paid and a free meal.
Correct.
If you don't need to increase your prices, it says you don't need to, you're still going to put increase. Because you might not be at that difference between.
Right, you have to be at the $3 to be at or above equity. In most of our schools, I don't know of any Oklahoma school that is charging $3.
There's a couple.
There's a couple.
If you're going to, even if you don't have to raise your prices, if you're not required to raise your prices, you'd still put increase.
Okay.
Unless you're at that threshold.
If you're not at that, and what Becky is saying is if you're not at that threshold, if it's showing at all, you need to increase, or you'll need to, very seldom will you put at or above equity, is what we're trying to say. That's in a rare instance. If you feel like you are there, you might call before you send in your tool. The price calculator, that's where they can adjust their pricing and then the last tab. All right, we have a few questions coming in, but let's finish the PowerPoint, and we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. Maybe. Nope, we didn't go back, Gary.
Right there.
Oh, wrong way. All right, Gary got us fixed up in a hurry. He could see the panic look on my face. Glad y'all couldn't see that look. Just a couple reminders. Record your name on each tab. Make sure you use that drop-down box on what method you're going to select for your PLE. Any additional directions when an SFA is at or above equity, like Becky was saying, that's going to be in a rare case. Make sure you record the source of those non-federal funds. The key to most of this is you're going to want to keep good documentation and record everything so that when a reviewer is conducting an AR, you're going to have this information readily available, because we're asking you for the non-federal funds that you have to cover maybe adult prices, that you're not charging the correct price for adults, and you're telling us you're using some of your non-federal funds to cover that. Those can't be the same non-federal funds that are covering these full paid lunch prices. Those have to be separate, and you have to be able to show us where those are and what ones you used. Things to remember: you're not required to raise lunch pricing, full paid lunch prices, more, and we're only talking about full paid prices, more than 10 cents on average per year. In compliance, if the formula shows that you're not required to raise. This is strictly a school district decision if you're going to raise pricing, or you're going to contribute to those non-federal funds, or you do a combination of each. The tool is always a good thing to have available to take to your school boards to say, this is a USDA requirement that we need to keep our full paid lunch prices to cover our food cost, because you guys have to remember that food cost is going up, and if you're not raising your full paid lunch prices accordingly, then your non-school food service account cannot cover those. Those have to be covered by the non-federal funds. And this year, in years past, we've attached the paid lunch equity tool to your April or May claim. This year, we're going to attach it to your application agreement for the 1920 school year. So if you're thinking, oh, I've got to get this done so I can, because they've locked my April claim. No, we're not locking your April claim this year or your May. You will have until we do the rollover and start processing application and agreements for the next school year. So you've got a little bit of time to get this to us, because we know you're very busy at the end of the school year trying to get other things wrapped up. Just remember those schools that could be exempt are the non-pricing, CEP, provision, residential child care, and those that send in for the exemption. You're not automatically exempt if you had a zero or a positive fund balance. You still have to send documentation before you're exempt. Once you complete this tool, and we kind of walk through the tool about how to save it with your school district name, your county district code, you're going to send that tool. The way we have the example here is you're going to put PLE, and we've used Oklahoma City Public Schools 55-I089 Oklahoma City. Save it like that, and then you're going to submit it to that same cnp.data.submissions@sde.ok.gov. I'm going to leave that there for just a minute in case you're frantically trying to write down that website, or that email address, I'm sorry. We will also post this webinar when we're all finished with the questions and answers on CARS, so that you can go back and at least, and the PowerPoint, so you can go back and look at or listen to either one of them. Now, I think we've had some questions come in, so give us just a minute to read over some of those questions, and we will try to get some of those answered while we still have time.
Can you still see them?
Some of them.
Hang on, I'll make them a little bigger. And now the guests can't necessarily see it over here, but your people here can.
Okay, good, because they need to help me answer.
Grab it. Should be able to make it bigger, but it's just stubbornly I grabbed it. Okay.
All right.
And let's see.
Right here.
Yep.
Okay. Someone asked, will we be able to get the PowerPoint sometime in the future? Yes, we will. We will post that on cars. Yes, you'll be able to download this presentation. What if we don't have last year's information available to us? If you cannot go on eClaims and get that last case scenario, you can call and one of the ladies will look that up for you. Where do we find the 2010 weighted average price? I missed that. The 2010 should have been carried forward from each year's old PLE tool. Again, if you can't find that or don't know where your old PLE tool is, you can call and we can help you with that. Okay, here's a good question. We are CEP for K through 8 this year, but I think next year we are going to come off CEP. Will this affect anything that I will be doing in this PLE? That is a very good question, because right now you'll still be exempt from PLE because you are currently a CEP school. But this might be one of those good places that you go ahead and put in what you just do the PLE tool with what you think your full paid amount of students would be, to see where you should start charging your full paid students, especially if you've been on PLE for several years. You're going to want some kind of base of what you would want to charge those CEP schools. Also, I may mention while we're talking about CEP K through 8, if you're a district that you are partially CEP or partially provision and partially paid, you are required to do the PLE for those schools or school sites that have full paid lunches that you are charging for. Okay, let me see. What if you use a food service and you're only charging $2.50? Okay, I'm not sure what your question is. If you're with a food service management company and they're charging you one price, it is still the school district who sets the full paid lunch pricing, not the food service management company. That is totally a school district driven issue. If we were exempt last year, didn't you request a PLE anyway? Or am I remembering wrong? Becky's shaking her head. So I think we did go ahead, and I think Patricia had you guys go ahead and complete the PLE tool. Unless you were non-pricing or CEP. Like I said, it's in your best interest to go ahead and complete the tool so you can keep up with it. But as a
we did not require them last year. They were I thought they did, but she still out of PLE.
Okay.
Sorry. No.
We're discussing that among us. The schools that called and talked to Becky, you filled out a tool. No, we don't. I don't know that for sure.
Well, I think Patricia did want them to fill one out, but they may not have. Because they may not have. I mean, yeah, they may not have turned it in. Yeah, they might have just kept it at the school.
Probably here's what we're deciding is Patricia during the webinar last year, and without going back and listening, I don't know for sure that she asked you to fill it out, but we didn't hold your feet to the fire and lock your claims or anything if you did not. So chances are, if you're that person that asked that question, you may not have been required to. They may have let you go ahead if you were exempt. Okay, somebody said, do we raise it? Do we raise lunch pricing? Yes. I'm not sure of that question. I wasn't required to do one last year. Okay, well, then you won the prize. Prices, I'm sorry, I am confusing you. Oh, do we need to raise pricing to $3 if we use a food service company?
You only have to raise your prices if the tool requires you to raise your prices.
Yeah, you only have to raise your full paid lunch prices if the tool requires, or if your school district just chooses to raise say your school district decides, okay, has nothing to do with the food service management company at all. The food service management company doesn't drive this process, doesn't really have anything to do with this process. If your district chooses to raise their full paid lunch pricing, you can raise it to whatever you want to, as long as you raise what the tool requires you to raise. So if the tool tells you you need to raise it 10 cents and your district says, no, we want to raise it 25 cents across the board, that is your call. When would we like the exempt information sent to us? Today.
Yeah, as soon as possible.
Just whenever you get it ready, you print out your OCAS or whatever report you're going to send us, send it to us. If we didn't do the PLE last year and was exempt, where do we pull the information from? You're going to have to go back to when the last PLE was done and pull it. And if you go back into the old single sign-on e-claims, you can go back. All that information is still there. So the PLE weighted, unrounded average and your average price is still in the old e-claim single sign-on. Okay, guys, that was some very, very good questions. Anybody have anything else before we wrap up the PLE? Wait, we have one question here in the audience.
It's not really a question, it's just a statement. Several schools that have asked about the fact that their claims weren't paid in a timely manner with our system. So their December report is not in the positive. But if they would have had all those claims in a timely manner, it would have been in the positive. So we are currently waiting on USDA to make a decision on whether we're going to say, yes, you're exempt, or no, do the PLE tool. So I don't know if you want to.
Okay, we're not sure exactly how to address this, but a question that has come up because our system, CARS, was not paying claims as accurate. Well, I shouldn't say accurately. It paid accurately. It just was paying behind because we were slow getting started this year. If your school district has not received or had not received its maybe November, December payments by the end of December, your child nutrition account may show in the negative. We're waiting on a response from USDA of what documentation we could take to exempt you if you feel your food service account had a positive balance as of December 31st. In other words, if you would have received your October, November, and December payments on time, if your food service was in the would have been in the positive had you received those. When we get that information, we will send it out in CARS. If you have that question that you really think you should have been in the positive, let us know, and as soon as we get word from USDA on that, we will be letting you know. Somebody's asked, will you be sending us proof of attendance for our training? Yes, we will send out certificates once we make sure we collect everyone's emails. And so if you didn't sign on using with a good current email, you might email me that you did listen through our stumbling through our paid lunch equity, and we will get those sent to you. But yes, you will get an hour's credit for attending the PLE. Any other questions? Remember, the PLE and the latest memo is under CARS. You don't have to sign in to get that information. Hope everyone got the email addresses written down, and call the Child Nutrition Office if you have any questions, 405-521-3327. Thank you, guys.